Hello everyone, Jonathan here with another weapon and something that will look familiar and yet probably unfamiliar at the same time to most of you. A lesser known variant of the Accuracy International series of precision rifles, specifically the L96A1, the British Army's original 7.62mm Accuracy International sniper rifle. That's appeared, well, sort of all over the place at this point. Very important weapon. The PM, the Precision Marksman, the AW, the Arctic Warfare that succeeded it, and then the whole family that's proceeded from there. Huge success, very important series of rifles, especially for the UK, of course. Now this is really interesting. So this essentially came out at the same time. You'll know the, if you don't know it, you can look it up and read it in an excellent book by Steve Houghton called The Green Meanie. And Dave Walls, one of the founders of Accuracy International, has also just come out with his own autobiography as well. So between the two of them, you can get the full story of the famous three men in a shed who conceived, built and sold the AI rifle to the British MOD, and the rest was history. Today we're here to look at this specific variant. It is technically still an L96A1. It even says that on the side. Because what this really is an L96A1 with a supplied kit to turn it into not just a suppressed sniper rifle, but an integrally suppressed sniper rifle. You've probably guessed that from the configuration that it's in. Long, thin suppressor going basically all the way back over the barrel. That's indicative of an integral suppressor, which we'll get into in a bit of detail in a moment. Now, I'm saying that this is a rifle in a kit. Not strictly true. They were built as one or the other. So there were specific rifles set up with the short barrel that's under here that we'll take off in a moment, and this barrel over the top. However, the idea was that you could replace, simply unthread the suppressed barrel and fit a normal AI barrel. So, which is to say, most L96s were made as conventional unsuppressed rifles. Some were made as PM suppressed, or PMSD as they were apparently known by the main user, and the main user, it will not surprise you to learn, was the SAS, or UKSF, both SAS and SBS ultimately, I believe. But the initial user was the SAS, the counter-terrorist wing to be precise. And that was in 1987. So this, very, very rare that we can tell you the exact date of manufacture of any of our objects. This one was made on the 8th of July, 1987. We know that thanks to, again, to Dave Walls, who very kindly showed us their ledger as to when things were made. And I've gone through and tried to match up all of our AI rifles to when they were made and who they were shipped to. Perhaps slightly disappointingly, this one was slated, this was part of a batch of 10 that were slated to go to Hereford. I think we know what that means. Something boathouse. But that was crossed out, and COD Donington was written in. Now, Central Ordnance Depot Donington was and is a sort of central depot from which weapons and kit are issued out. So this seems to have been a sort of almost overrun production, as it were, that went to Donington, and it could have then gone on to the SAS or somebody else, and it ultimately came to the Ministry of Defence pattern room, and then to us instead. So this is not itself an SAS sniper rifle, but in concept, that's absolutely what it is. And in fact, the PM, the Precision Marksman, was conceived first and foremost as a Special Forces sniper rifle, whether it was suppressed or not. So let's take this off. I don't think we'll be able to show you the insides of this suppressor, but I have thrown a rather antiquated bore scope down it, and I will do my best to describe it to you. But we can show you how it comes off and what's underneath. The rest of the rifle, absolutely standard. Bolt action magazine rifle. Just before we move on though, I have to show you this because, well, firstly to show you side by side, unsuppressed versus suppressed. These are obviously a lot more common. These were regular infantry issue sniper rifles for the whole army and Royal Marines, not just Special Forces. But so side by side, it is literally the same rifle with this new barrel and suppressor system attached to it. So this is what it would look. This rifle would look like, of course, if you reverted to the ordinary full-length barrel. Now, as well as just as an example of a stock L96A1, I also want to show you that marking there before we move back to the suppressed rifle. This is serial number 1, the first production L96 ever made that we're very fortunate to have. Now, removing the suppressor is really straightforward. We just unthread it. Now, when I first removed this, looking into this rifle, there was a horrifying aroma that came off this thing that we believe is very old Young's 303. If you know, you know. Yep, it's still pretty potent. Cleaning the barrel has helped, but so old preservative essentially. I guess it has an organic base because it's pretty whiffy. As you can see, this barrel underneath is tiny. It's a 12-inch barrel. These flats here, these two flats on the barrel, are simply for removing it because it's so close to the fore end that it would otherwise be difficult to remove in the normal way. Threads at the back there, which of course is what I've just removed this from. Usual proof marks on there for caliber and pressure. So this is a super short 12-inch barrel made by Lothar Walther, I believe. The suppressor is 26 inches in old money, and it's 1¼ inch diameter, so it is very slim for a suppressor. It's double walled. Both walls, I believe, are made from aluminium, so it's very light. And in the first we have a larger diameter end here to sleeve over the barrel, obviously. And at this point here, marked by these hex screws, you have a ported sleeve with rows of holes. Two different sizes at one place, but primarily the same sort of size all the way down to give you that expansion chamber. And then just in this very last portion, around about here, we have 7 baffles, conventional suppressor type baffles with obviously a hole through the middle for the bullet to pass through. So we've essentially got an expansion chamber sleeve with lots of holes drilled all the way around for high pressure gas to pass into and then further expand. And then we have a normal, as it were, suppressor portion up here. So quite a complex construction, apparently quite sensitive to full power 7.62 rounds. If you fire too many of those, it's going to destroy that aluminium, apparently. This is in Houghton's book. And apparently the SAS were known to do that, to fire supersonic full house rounds through this rifle. I mentioned full power rounds. Well, if not full power, what are you shooting through this thing? As you probably guessed, subsonic rounds were the order of the day. 200 grain subsonics were going to be the first, at least 5 rounds, I don't know how many. And then the last few apparently were frequently loaded supersonic. So you had the ability to be quiet and then to go loud and cause more damage, shoot out to greater distances. But in doing so, you would potentially shred your suppressor. So these were consumable units to a degree, as I suppose a lot of suppressors were. One other feature on this otherwise anonymous looking external tube, both ends actually, we have 4 pinholes, both ends. Now that's maybe for refurbishing if the suppressor still has useful components or can be refurbished by AI. I don't think even armourers are going to be messing with this thing. Meant to be a sealed unit as far as almost everyone is concerned. So in theory, no other modifications to the rifle were required, and as I say, it is interchangeable back to a full-length barrel. Houghton's book mentions that the stock sides, so the plastic cladding, the polymer cladding of the chassis, aluminium chassis under here with polymer sides screwed to it, pretty innovative at the time. That was allegedly somewhat ground away to accommodate this suppressor. I am struggling to detect that. I think we'd have to look very closely to see that. There are some scrape marks there, but I think that's just from refitting of the suppressor. Apparently a different scope was used by SAS, but since this never arrived with them, it would make sense that it's not on there. The scope that's on this is the standard Schmidt & Bender PM 6x42 scope that was on the standard service L96 with the standard reticle. Apparently the SAS scope had a dot reticle in the centre of it, and there was allegedly, we refit this, there was allegedly a piece of electrical tape incorporated into the mount in order to give it sufficient elevation to clear the suppressor here. But as you can see, with this scope in this configuration, there's no problem there, and there is no tape in evidence. Not that many of these made, only 35 as far as I can tell. 3 batches. We have 18 made for the SAS, May 1987, so that's the first batch. And then another batch of 7 and of 10, both in July 1987, which is when this one was made and supplied. But that last 10, as I say, they did not go straight to Hereford. Whether any of those made it there through another route afterwards, I can't say. All we can say is that this one ended up preserved with us. Now, they were only ever used by UKSF. 2 were purchased by the Metropolitan Police, interestingly. And as far as I know, saw no use, and they no longer have those. So I guess they were sort of an extended trial or something, and they decided that they didn't need that capability at that time, at least, of a short-range suppressed marksman's rifle. Perhaps needless to say, a subsonic 200 grain 7.62 bullet is not going to travel as far with as much velocity as a supersonic bullet is. But for police marksman type roles, counter-terrorist roles with the SF, 100 meters, 200 meters, it's not a problem. I've no examples of actual usage by UKSF with these things. I'm sure that might come out in decades to come. So these were ultimately replaced by a suppressed variant of the L118A1 long-range sniper rifle, known as the commercial name was the Arctic Warfare Covert. So same idea, integrally suppressed variant of a standard service sniper rifle. So there we go, guys. This is the PMSD, as it was apparently known in service, and just PM suppressed as it appears in Accuracy International's own materials. Many thanks to them for helping out. Kind of a fascinating capability that I think a lot of people were unaware of from 1987 into the 90s, and then replaced by something very similar but modernized. Incidentally, where this requirement originated, I mean, it's kind of an obvious thing for counter-terrorist troops to need, but there was, according to Steve's book, and I've no reason to doubt it, the previous suppressed rifle in use by SAS for this role was an L1A1 SLR with a suppressor on it and a 22 conversion kit. So they're popping off little subsonic 22 rounds through a suppressor, which would be extremely quiet, but I'd be a little concerned over, I guess, the reliability of that, and also the terminal ballistics of that. It's hard to argue with, for something where you don't have to carry it and fight up close with it, hard to argue with 200 grains of subsonic 7.62. Not so sure about the 2.2 solution. So I imagine the counter-terrorist wing were extremely pleased to receive this design from Accuracy International. Thank you for watching, guys. We do appreciate it. As always, check out our various social media channels, and if you feel moved to, we do have a donation link on the website as well. In terms of what's going on, we still have our Reloaded exhibition here in Leeds. That's until the end of June. And also in June, but early June, 6th of June, in time for D-Day, we will be opening an exhibition at our Fort Nelson site, which for those of you who don't know, is down on the south coast and is well worth a look at any time of year. But if you go in June, you'll be seeing some material dedicated to D-Day, which we're excited about. But we'll see you here again next week.